Welcome to the Embracing Brokenness podcast, where our goal is to engage with all of those willing to venture deeper into their transformational journey with Christ.
We're going to start with a video, and then we'll see if you know why it was even relevant, why we even showed it.
And let me introduce you to Graham Cook.
First time I ever got into spiritual warfare was on the mission field. And I was out there with 4 Baptist boys and a Methodist. And me, who got saved out of a crime family. So we're all out on the mission field together, and we're like, we parachute into this valley, and our plan is to walk out 400 miles and preach the gospel. You know, brilliant fun. So we get to this place. And this witch doctor comes out, and he's got skulls and body parts hanging off him, and he looks like nothing on earth. He looks grotesque, like something out of a movie. And he comes out. I don't understand the language, but I know a curse when I hear one. So everyone stops except me. I'm walking towards him, and I've never seen anything like this. And I'm just learning about spiritual warfare. So it's like, well, I don't even know what to do right now. You know? But I'm not backing down. So I'm thinking, Lord, you got me into this. You're going to have to get me out of this. Otherwise, you and I will be shaking hands real quick. So he's moving towards me. He's shouting and so on, and the whole village is cowering behind him. And I look around, and my companions are heading in the other direction. So it's like me and him. And I'm just thinking, well, I'm not backing down. Lord, you're going to have to do something. And heaven is silent. I'm saying, Lord, give me something. And the only thing that pops into my head is when I was a kid, I used to go to a place in a northern town in England called Liverpool, to a place called the Cavern, where the Who, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, the Kinks, and all those guys, you know, they were all young guys playing homemade instruments, and I would just go, and it was great fun. And I used to buy Mick Jagger a pint of beer, because that's what we do in England. And so all I can remember at that moment is Mick Jagger singing, "I Can't Get No Satisfaction." It's the only thing that pops into my head. So I'm thinking, I haven't got anything else, so I start doing the whole Mick Jagger thing. It's, you know, when I'm driving in my car and a voice comes on the radio telling me more and more about some useless information supposed to drive my imagination, I can't get no. And that's all I'm doing. Satisfaction! He takes one look at me, he screams out loud, and he heads for the hills and was never seen again. I have no idea what is going on or anything. And I stop and I say to the Lord, what just happened? And all I can hear is the sound of him laughing. And laughing and laughing and laughing and laughing. Like belly laughing. Like you just know he's drying his eyes with a handkerchief. I'm saying, what just happened? He said, that was the funniest thing ever. I said, why didn't you say anything? He said, son, I wanted to teach you something. What? And he's quiet. He said, I'm not going to tell you. Figure it out. So I'm standing there thinking, you want to... Oh, I get it. I could have the spirit of stupid on me and still win. I could be as dumb as anything, and I'm still strong enough to overcome something demonic. I get it. Your majesty covers everything. I get it. I get it.
Isn't that awesome? So remember that next time you encounter a situation. Spirit is stupid.
Yeah. How's that fit into Identity Matters? Or do you think we just want to entertain you? That's just part of it.
That's part of it.
It's always fun to start the class, especially right after lunch with Graham.
Well, it was him really stepping into who he is as a child of the King, like, all right, and just that trust of, right, yeah. So just really making that who he is.
Yeah. It's almost like a childlike faith too in some ways. Like, he's new to all this and they're going to go do this and he doesn't know what he's doing and he's like, yeah, God, you better show up. And God does, but probably not in the way that he expected him to. So, yeah.
So what's a great example of no matter what the situation is, because I doubt that any of us are going to find ourselves in that situation.
Yeah, you never know.
Come on, you work in Water Street. Come on.
Every week there's a new thing that occurs. That somehow could happen here. I don't know, just saying.
I mean, in that context. Like,
Exactly.
Yeah.
When you said we parachuted in, I was like, dang, like, this is the first thing we've done. Wow, God. Anyway, it's a great example of no matter what situation we're in, no matter who we are, whether we are a new believer or have been walking with God for years, it's not about us. It's not about what we would do, because he would not have chosen to sing chant, Mick Jagger. Like, that would not, you know what I mean? It's not what we would do, it's what he would do. And kind of like you were saying, it's about that trust, but our identity, there's less about us and more about him.
100%. Yeah.
Now the witch doctor could speak English anyway, so
Well, yeah.
might as well pick Mick Jagger. That's as good a song as
He was
that.
out in a remote area and didn't have a radio and didn't speak English.
Yeah.
Like that was,
Yeah.
because that would have been a scary looking presentation in another language and whatever. So it's kind of funny that they chose that.
So we decided to start off with something a little fun, and Graham Cook provided the laughs. But the reality is that many of us don't really have a intimate relationship with God enough to be able to hear from him, to have a conversation with him. So we get into that this time around, and we'll talk more about hearing from God. So listen on.
Here's some things about practicing the presence. You've probably heard us use that phrase. Guys, we don't get good at anything unless we practice. We've been taught from a young age, if you want to be a baseball player, you start out in t-ball or throwing ball in your backyard with your dad or mom or sister, and you practice and practice, and then eventually you gain mastery of things. So because we have not been taught to really understand, many people don't have a clue how to hear from God or how God uniquely speaks or how to get quiet, because all the distractions of the world come in. And so you've got to teach people what happens with the distraction till they can sit more and more quiet. It's in the quietness that God starts to surface the wounds that he wants to heal. And many of us don't want to sit there because we don't know what to do with that stuff. And so we call a lot of these things, as do people throughout history, we didn't make this up, but practicing the presence of God. And so go ahead. We started class with God kisses and gratitude. I will say I have never seen anything start to change people's relationship with God as much as God kisses and gratitude. Understanding that nothing is coincidence, thanking God for it. We just had a guest this morning. He goes, a year ago, I hated God and I hated you guys kept talking about him and whatever, and I was mean and I was bitter, and I didn't even want to tell my name to anybody here, my government name he calls it. I didn't want to tell him, I just want to use my secret name because I didn't want to be known. And he said, I'm a different man today. He goes, we gave him a copy of, which one is over there? Not Utmost. That's the name of our little book over there. Jesus Calling, thank you. So I keep buying a lot of those and we keep giving them all out. But he goes, I read Jesus Calling. And he said, when I read Jesus Calling, I come to your class, Teresa's class, Mark's class, and you guys are saying something that Jesus just showed me. And I said, yeah, that's kind of how God does it. And I said, and then you probably walk out on the street and somebody mentions something, you're like, that's the third time, because he tends to do things in threes, which is always fascinating. So pay attention for the third time now that you're starting to hear. And he's like, every day, every day. And it started with just an acknowledgement. This wasn't even a believer at the beginning, but just an acknowledgement. If you're out there, I'm going to just give you gratitude for something and not call it coincidence. And then you start to walk in a different way.
Here we play a short video about neuroplasticity. And so I want you to just take a moment and focus on what you're hearing and ponder just how immense the human brain is and how God constructed us in this very unique way.
The human brain, made of approximately 100 billion neurons, the same number of stars that exist within our galaxy. The human brain monitors and regulates all of the body's actions and reactions. With over 5 trillion chemical operations occurring every second, and signals being transferred at speeds of over 260 miles per hour, our brain is rapidly analyzing and responding to all of the sights, sounds, and smells all around us. Now, because we are all born slaves to sin, our mind has been programmed to behave out of selfish desire. The way we think, dream, reason, and act are limited to the ways of this world. Now consider the facts for a moment. For every behavior we experience, our brain creates a neurological pathway. As behaviors are repeated, those pathways become increasingly more stable. Think of it this way. A single behavior maps out a dirt road in your brain, creating a basic pathway for your thoughts to travel. But as you repeat behaviors, your brain builds a highway, allowing for an increased volume and frequency of thoughts to move about, resulting in your day-to-day actions. In order to change our behavior, we must reprogram our brain. It requires the deconstruction of existing highways and is a process that takes time. The Bible directs us to take every thought captive and to commit daily to the renewing of our mind through the power of God's Word. And in time, the result is the formation of an entirely new neurological roadmap, leading you to the life you were meant to live.
The fight between science and faith, I mean, it's real. Most scientists that you know just are atheists. The guy who led the human genome, mapping the human genome, was a diehard atheist. But when he got in there and saw the complexity and it couldn't be done by chance, he finally was like, there has to be a creator. But most scientists will not acknowledge God. And there is this belief that Christianity is not based on science. And I think it is hilarious that because of tools that we have today, even as we're looking at the brain, I mean, shocking things are being revealed because we can see what's happening. And science is completely backing up. Like this concept of sin and taking thoughts captive and just all the things the Bible instructs is because God knows how he wired our brains to begin with. He knows that we walked out into that fear, and fear reprogrammed the brains because it was more survival. And that the goal to be able to walk and talk in the garden with God and live what we, the place that we are called back to, even while we're here on this earth, means the transformation of your brain. And now we're seeing how it works, and science is completely backing it up. And so there's so many things that science today is, showing us through, it's validating the scriptures for people who have said, no way.
We came across this video, and so it's video day, by the way, if you haven't been able to tell. We're appealing to your senses of visual interest today. I'm not sure that we had originally planned it this way, but we couldn't leave this out. Yeah. Many of you know, who's that? You may know Michael Jr., right? And many of you might have actually heard this story. I remember in the way back in the recesses of mine hearing about it, because this was, I think in 2018 he did this in his comedy routine, which is laced with all kinds of really cool truths. He was for anybody that did Global Leadership Summit, I think he did that a couple years, and you can watch him all over YouTube. We actually, for anybody, by the way, that wants to use it for guests, I have a whole series. We got at the Leadership Summit on Michael Jr. Like, the guy's hilarious, right? He's absolutely stinking hilarious. But in this case, he's telling us a different way of thinking. And it's by personal experience. So we just had to share this with you in case you didn't think that God can show up in ways that we can hear his voice through another person or through circumstances. Let's call it that in this case, all right?
So I put some comedy in between some truths because this is what I want you to understand. A moment ago, we talked about how most people are trying to figure out their what. When the truth is what you need to do is figure out your why. But the only way you can know your what is by knowing your why, but you don't get any of that unless you know who. The who is the key to all of this. So not too long ago, me and my wife, we were looking at some video footage of our youngest daughter, she's 5 now, being born. And I had never seen this footage from this perspective before, like ever. I took the video myself, but I hadn't looked at it and absorbed it in this way. So what I'm about to show you, it's a clip. She's probably 2 minutes old at this point. She's crying, she's on the table, the nurse is about to take care of her, and I want you to pay attention to what happens when she hears my voice. Okay, Portland, look, I'm right here. It's okay, it's okay. I'm right here, I'm right here. We're doing just fine. It's okay. It's okay, I'm right here. Right here, yeah, it's okay. So, when I saw that, I was overwhelmed with how awesome that is. So it's a few minutes later. The nurses cleaned her up a little bit, and she stopped crying. But then, about 3 minutes or so into that, she starts crying more. And then I speak up, and she stops crying again. What I want you to notice how she responds when I tell her I love her. Portland, it's okay. It's okay. It's good. It's good. It's good. I'm right here. I'm right here. I am right here. I love you. I love you. I love you. Yeah, I'm right here. I'm right here. It's okay. It's okay. So there's going to be times when you're trying to figure out what your what is and what your why is. There's going to be times where things are not comfortable, even to the point of tears. The key thing to do in those moments is to just be still and listen for the Father's voice, because he is talking to you. And what he wants you to know is that he loves you. All you have to do is open your eyes. I'm Michael Jr. I love you.
This was another episode of the Embracing Brokenness podcast. For more information on Embracing Brokenness Ministries, or to subscribe to our blog, podcast, YouTube channel, or engage with us on social media, please visit our website at embracingbrokenness.org. Thanks for joining us.